Hey everybody, this is Chip Ratliff, and you are listening to The Chip Ratliff Show. Here at The Chip Ratliff Show, we bring you music and interviews that entertain and inspire. So let's go ahead and get started, but first, a word from our sponsors. Shorefront is an organization that collects, preserves, and educates the public about Black history on Chicago's suburban North Shore. Located in Evanston, Illinois, and with archival collections dating before 1900, Shorefront's archives have been accessed and cited around the globe. To support Shorefront, or for just more information, feel free to go to shorefrontlegacy.org. That's shorefrontlegacy.org. Hey everybody, welcome to the Chip Ratliff Show. I'm glad you decided to join us today, decided to be with us. I know you have a choice in the matter and you chose us, so thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Today's guest is the one and only Morris Dino Robinson. For those of you who don't know who Dino is by day. What do you do by day, Dino? Either way.
Work at production manager at Northwestern University Press.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. But his claim to fame, which got him a street named after him, a day named Dino Day, is November 28th. I'm telling you, November 28th, and a key to the city, which we try to get him to wear around his neck, like Flavor Flav, but he ain't done it yet. But we working on it. But the things that got him all that is that he is the founder and creator of Shorefront. Shorefront is an organization on Chicago's suburban North Shore that collects, preserves, and educates about Black history on Chicago's suburban North Shore. It started off as a magazine, it's grown into an entity, something beyond, anybody's probably grasped probably what he thought it could be or would ever be. But the one and only Mr. Dino Robinson here on the Chip Ratliff Show, ladies and gentlemen. Yay! All right,
thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Dino. So, you know what? I'm not going back to the whole, I think we did an interview before and we talked about your purpose. When did you figure out this out was your purpose? I want to go back to, because something is very important about what you talk about Shorefront. You talk about the narrative, that we own our own narrative. So when you created Shorefront, it wasn't a matter of, hey, people who are not doing this right, can I help you do it right? It was like, no, we're going to do our own narrative, which basically means Black people telling our own story, which is so powerful. So powerful. So you started telling me about some things. I have my favorite story about how Shorefront started.
Right.
But you're telling me about there's some more to that. So let's kind of go back to where you want to start, the way Shorefront started, things like that. So go ahead.
So I had 3 points with this one entity here in the Evanston area when I was trying to do, historical research, in my life. So my first contact was actually in high school here in Evanston, and I was doing the Chicago Metropolitan History Fair. And I was going to do research on the Robinson Bus Company. No relation to me, but it was a Black-owned bus company, school bus company, that was, in business for about a good 20 years. And they kind of blew up and actually expanded what they did. So I want to get the early history of it and how they got started. I interviewed, the son, who was instrumental at the very beginning of it. And so part of my research was go to different places to dig around. And one of the places, the historical organization, I walked in there. Now, mind you, I'm a Black kid going to a large mansion on the lakefront, history center, and it's, $1 million homes. And I walk in there, and they have volunteers that work the desk and everything like that. And you expect oh, hey, welcome, and how can we help you today? What I got was, what do you want?
Wow.
And, I was kind of stunned. I didn't know what to do. So I basically turned around and walked away.
Wow.
And I did not go back in those doors for another 10 years. Wow. Now, mind you, for the Chicago Metro History Fair, to balance up on that, I got third place.
Okay.
So that was cool.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
But going back again, I was doing research what became now known as Shorefront. I walked in there after going to several other places, and I went to the research room, and the archivist at the time pulled out 3 file folders labeled colored. And this is 1995.
Yeah, this is 95, people. This wasn't the 50s.
Right.
This is 1995.
And so, and just probably pulled it out. I'm like, yeah, I got to do something about that.
Yeah, it's like you walk into an organization, and that's what you have about black people. That she pulls out, people, she or she, whatever, pull out 3 file folders with colored on it. It's like, what the heck is that?
Right.
That's my story. That's the story I
Right,
tell.
right.
That's my favorite story of how I started. But go ahead.
And so the last point is still with the same organization. I was there doing research, and I was going to other places in the Chicago metropolitan area, the Newberry Library, the historical organizations all along the North Shore, libraries along the North Shore, and talking to residents. So I was doing so much. They saw this as an opportunity. Hey, let's get Dino on board, and he's going to do research for us about the black community. Ruta Reagan, that was going to happen, but they didn't know that yet. So I think the director at the time walked in the room and said, "Hey, the board would like you to be on the board of directors of this organization." And I said, "Sure, why not?" And so after about a year being on there, I remember I was talking about ideas to expand outreach and everything like that in the community, and I mentioned a program that piggybacks off the house walk that they do. And when I mentioned going to the black communities and do something, the director at that time said there's nothing of intrinsic value that the black community has ever produced.
Wow.
And I kind of stunned a little bit, kind of smiled a little bit, because I'm like, okay, this person does not know what they're talking about.
Wow.
Now, what happened at the same time, too, is that 2 other board members happened to be walking by the room when she said that. They were mortified. So within days, she was let go.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
She was let go. And then I ended up being on the hiring committee for the new ED over there.
Okay.
So I started getting more and more vocal about, what needs to be done, and, pointing out some ideas that are general in nature. But then after near the end of my term, they voted me to be their board president.
Oh, they did? Okay, I didn't know that.
Right. And I believe I'm the first black board president of that organization. And I served, it was a 2-year term, so they had to change the bylaws, because you only serve 3 years, no more than 2 consecutive terms. So I was already on there for 6 years. I was in my 6th year when I was voted in as president. The term is for 2 years. So they had to readjust the bylaws to allow me to stay on the board for 7 years instead of 6 years, so I could fill out my term.
Okay.
So, but the day I got there as board president and my first convening of the meeting, I said, I am not the ambassador to the black community. This is what the board has to do to gain that trust and respect. But by that time, I had already thought in my mind that I'm not the type that goes to protest something that I think is unjust. I go out to try and make that change that is in control of our own community. So looking at the historical narrative and our history, my thought wasn't to badger or protest or lodge complaints against an entity that already exists to say, well, how come there are no black people on the wall? I say, we got enough resources in our own community to do this ourselves. So we don't need to fight. That's too much wasted energy.
Right.
I don't need to fight that when we can build our own. I'd rather put the energy in fighting to get something of our own and do it that way that we control on our terms.
Right.
And that's what I set out to do with Shorefront.
Well, I mean, that's what's happened with the Shorefront. I mean, the organization itself it's a black-run organization. There's nobody controlling and pulling the strings here. It's about our narrative. We're telling our story. Let's let everybody know we're at Shorefront right now. We're sitting in the Shorefront. What would you call this area? This would just be
the sitting room, the living room
of Shorefront right now. And we are surrounded by just to say Black history, it's just amazing. We're surrounded by our narrative, our story told by us, not by someone else who decided they wanted to take our story on and tell our story.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that that's so amazing. It's also amazing along with the fact that when you shared with me about a year or so ago, just before you got the street named after you, your vision of Shorefront was that Black history should be common knowledge.
Yes.
I thought about that. I'm like, wow, you know how powerful that statement is? That if Black history, true Black history, was common knowledge to everyone. Black people don't know Black history. We don't know what our history is.
Right.
I've sat down with my mom sometimes, and she's seen something on TV. She's like, wow, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, I knew that, just because I'm part of Shorefront, and I think we were talking recently about the racism that was happening in the armed forces, maybe in the 40s or the 20s or something like that. Mm-hmm. I think she said something about how when her dad passed away, he was in the military. He couldn't even get a military funeral because they didn't have any records of him. Mm. She was like, she said she called the military, whatever, and they're like, man, we don't even have any records. Don't even tell me. His name was Willie T. Jones. She's like, I no way I can find Willie T. Jones. Wow. We didn't have records of him or nothing. My father had records because he was in like Vietnam, like in the 60s and things like that. But my grandfather couldn't even get a military funeral. Wow. Because they couldn't find it. They would not even look for his records. They said we were not keeping records back then. Mm-hmm. People, I'm like, wow, what? How are you? How are you not keeping records of people? Right. And
that is a challenge too, because just talking in general, we're surrounded by archives here, but the challenge to get those from families who were taught basically all their lives not to value their own history. Mm-hmm. They don't keep things. It's like, oh yeah, my father or mother was involved with X, Y, Z, and they were pretty prominent in that organization, and we didn't think it was important, so we threw it away. And so a lot of us are like re-educating our community that we determine what's important, right? Not by another filter that was meant to exclude us, right? So we can set that standard. That standard be simply, for early in this history after slavery, a lot of the positions that were available to us for the common Black man and woman was like a domestic servant type of thing, a service type of industry, Pullman poor, all these things. Those are important. Every single one of those positions are important, so don't devalue it, but understand the dynamic of, let's say, being a domestic worker, a Black woman, earning her own money in this time period, working in a white household, and how she had to comport herself. Now, she's a Black proud woman, but she has to comport herself differently with this white family. Mm-hmm. So she can keep that job, so she put food on the table with her family that she's not seen very often because she's too busy being a domestic at another household from sunup to sundown. Right. And then you come home, and she's the pillar of the community, dressing her fine nines and going to church, being a deacon leader or like leader of a social club. That story is important because it tells about the social conditions in the United States, but also the duality of her status in the community.
It's just amazing to think about the things that I've learned. It's like right now, I'm currently the board president of Shorefront. The things that I've learned just being around Dino and just hearing what he's talking about and things like that, it's mind-blowing. If anyone gets a chance, you have an interest to come down to Shorefront just to see what we're talking about. And we're growing on a regular basis. We're growing. We're looking for our own facility right now. We're in the first level of a church in Evanston, which is great. They've been great to us. But we're growing. It's so we need room, we need space, So if anyone out there has an idea for a space, let us know, please. Just reach out to Chip Ratliff at chiprattliffproductions@gmail.com and let me know. And I'll get it to the board and everything. We'll get things set up or whatever wants to look at, But if you get a chance, just come down. But if you want to go online, just go to shorefrontlegacy.org. That is our website right now, right? Mm-hmm. Shorefrontlegacy.org. And just take a look. And if you want to set up some time, call the number on the screen there. Call Dino, leave a message, set up some time to come down here on a Saturday or whatever. It's right now it's by appointment only mostly. But we're open on Saturdays generally, right?
10 to 2.
10 to 2. But once you find out you want to come down here, please just let us know. We'll be happy to have you. So, Dino, so let's talk about where Shorefront is now and where you would like to see it go in the future. I mean, you can't predict the future. No one can predict the future. Right. But you can have an idea of what you want it to go. Where is it? Where are we at now? Where do you want us to be? Where are you looking at it?
So just kind of paint a picture, for our audience. As mentioned, we're in the lower level of Sherman United Methodist Church here in Evanston. It's a nice sized space, 2,400 square feet. But if you understand archives takes up a lot of space.
Yes, it does.
We can sit there and say, oh, all you need to do is put up a few pictures on the wall and blah, 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 and you're done. No. Those things come from items from our collection. And if you imagine one of those metal wire baker's rack shelving units, they're about 5 shelves high, about 4 feet long, about 1.5 inches deep. We have 25 of those shelving units filled with boxes and archives. So that approximates about 500 linear feet of material stored away in boxes, archived in folders. We have the sitting room is surrounded by books by and about Black people. We have, conference room tables, so we have our board meetings down there. We have people that come down and do research. We have students that come down and tour. We've had family reunions union members come down here to check out our space. We have city officials who come down here and do research. So we operate like a library that doesn't circulate items outside its doors. We do everything in its doors.
Yeah, exactly.
So as it grew from my dining room table to our first space at a converted school that became a community center to our space that we're in now. So 25 years of doing this. So I can look at this as like, this is 25 years, this is a young adult, it needs to go to grad school.
Yeah, how about it? Yeah,
he's growing up. He's got to get out of my pocket. Time to grow up, and time for all the support systems to grow up with it. So recently, I stepped down as executive director. We hired a new executive director, and I think she's wonderful. Laurice Bell, look her up. She's cool.
She is real cool. Laurice is real cool.
Yeah,
go ahead.
And the board is growing up as well and learning. There's like a learning curve. But that's with everything that you do. I'm excited about it. It's a little scary at times. But where we want to be in the future is have our own street level facility. Yeah. With a sign, Shorefront Legacy Center, with regular hours, with staff, with engagement with the community, with partnerships with various entities that utilize Shorefront and its archives and other unknown programs that we don't have planned yet or that we would like to plan. So those are things where we want to go. Oh, and primarily the most important thing, as I talk about community members controlling their own narrative, part of that controlling the narrative is also controlling our own financial destiny. And what I mean by that is that, a lot of nonprofits, survive on grants and donations. And we scramble every year to find money to just maintain. So we have set up an endowment so that we can put enough money in there, eventually enough that we're self-sustaining. That we use the proceeds of that endowment to pay for our staffing, our rent, our space, our utilities. So we could focus on doing good work in the community and just really rely on grants for special projects or initiatives that keep the organization valid. So, but keeping the doors open, the lights on, and the staff employed, the talented staff that's employed, that's what the endowment is for, and that's what we're trying to grow.
Awesome, awesome. You know what, Dino? I want to go back just a little bit more. I was thinking about one thing I wanted to talk to you about was your journey, journey here. And I always tell people journeys are not easy. You know, you can say 25 years it's been all bliss. No, it hasn't. There's been a lot of times when I'm sure Dino's like, I'm not doing this, man, forget this. But he has kept going. So, Dino, if you can share with people a little bit that may be on something, on journey and something, doing something, that they maybe have been running into a roadblock or something. What has kept you going and motivated to keep Shorefront growing? Because, like I said, see the thing about Shorefront, as much as we're board members and we like to think that we are just, oh my God, you can't do without us. Oh, yes, he could have. He could have done this all without us. You know, honestly, because all of this is his work. I'm just amazed at this man that has put this all together. And I mean, I'm happy to say he's my best friend. I'm like, man, this dude, wow, I just want to hang around him, get some of his mojo, seriously, for whatever it is I'm trying to do, you know, keep myself going. So, Dino, just go back to what has kept you going through this? I mean, for this. I mean, it's been 25 years, man.
So there's a couple of people. You know, one, a big shout out to my wife who has had my back. Even, I started this before I was married. I was dating my wife when I started this.
Okay.
But she's had my back ever since the very beginning of this whole thing. Even when she was looking at me all funny, like, what do you mean you're doing all this? And you're about to come out of our bank account with some money to, you know, spend money on this organization that people are telling you you're not supposed to do.
Wow.
You know?
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
People telling you you're not supposed to do this.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to do this. No, it came from interesting angles. So from the academic level, they're coming to me saying you can't do this because you don't have a PhD. And I'm like, what does a PhD have to do with learning history? This is not something you need a degree to do. You just have to understand how to do it. And you surround yourself with people that know how to do it. So it was strategic when you get board members that have a background in archival studies, a person who's a background in legal aspects, a person with background with space allocation, renting, and real estate. You and educators to come in on the board to help you go through all this stuff. I mean, if you think about all the major, you know, billionaires out there, how they started their business, it wasn't just them.
Right.
They surrounded themselves with people that knew exactly what to do and give them the space to go ahead and do it. And that's what I did with Shorefront. So you don't need a PhD. I had a minor in African American Studies, but you don't need a PhD to do it. So that was one part I had to deal with. The other part was the local, you know, historians that will do their side chair history checks and say, well, these oral histories are all anecdotal. There's nothing true about it. They're highly inaccurate. I'm like, yeah, you got a point. A lot of them are inaccurate. But there's nodules of truth in there. And if more than 3 people said it, then it happened. And so it's up to you as a researcher to find the proof that it happened. And that's what we started doing. It's like, all these people are saying these things happen. Let me look for these evidence that it's happened. And sometimes they're buried. They're buried in newspaper articles. Sometimes with headlines and things that, you know, you wouldn't think that that's what they're talking about. But you look for it. And when you start finding those patterns and start looking for more and more information, you see other things that come up. So I was able to quell that, saying, well, you know, who's to say that they're not lying? You know, and push back on that. The third and more surprising one was coming from our own community, the black community locally. And not from everyone, but there's some very key vocal people that said, you're not from Evanston, because I was born in Chicago originally. We moved around a bit and we settled in Evanston. But you're not from Evanston. Why are you doing this? You don't have the right to do this because you're not from here. You don't know the history. And they'll go off and start rattling some historical things, which, no, they're somewhat accurate. But what I saw from a lot of people that are telling their history from their point of view in their own personal timeline. And so what I saw in the black community in general was that they had this moving timeline that resets to zero every generation. So they're forgetting more and more about the past stuff that happened in Evanston and just focus on their personal history. So if they're born in 1963, they're talking about history from 1963 on. You know, so I'm like, well, the first person to do this was this person. From their timeline, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so what I would do in engagement is say, well, what about these three people that did it before that? And they sit there and pause and go, oh, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, that's the point of having this organization. I don't know the history. I'm just sharing the stories that other families like yourself are sharing with Shorefront. Mm-hmm. And what I'm trying to do is reset that zero back to the very beginning. Look at each and every individual story as a puzzle piece, and Shorefront is the big puzzle that we're trying to build.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that way, all of your collective histories make up the entirety of our local history here in Evanston and the North Shore. Right. And when I started framing it that way, they're like, oh, okay, I get it now. You know, and they start thinking more abstractly about what was happening in this community, what was happening in this environment. Let me talk to my mom more about this, or my grandmother about this now, and see what else I could learn about our collective history here. And that's a one-on-one type thing.
You know, it's funny how you talk about that. You talk about once you educate people, it's amazing how their minds are, when they go, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, it's like, yeah, that's what I'm here for. I'm trying to tell you.
Right.
And I'm here to try to educate you and help everybody, you know. What makes you think, it's almost like, why would you be doing this for a negative reason, you know?
Right.
It's like, why do you think I'm doing this for a bad reason? Why do you think what is the upside of me telling our history wrong?
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, it doesn't
especially in a community that lived the history.
Yeah.
That would check me right away.
Right, exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So,
and on that, too, it's like, you know, I try and do, like, what I call annual reports. And a lot of people think, like, oh, you're going to give that to the city of Evanston? No. Or you're going to the Historical Society and do that? No. University? No. I go to the Foster Senior Club. That's my check. And I look for two signs. I look for head nods up and down or arms crossed. If arms are crossed, you know you got to go. You did something wrong. And you got to go to them and say, hey, sir, ma'am, I just finished speaking up there. I saw your arms crossed. What did I get wrong? Mm-hmm. And, you know, 9 times out of 10, it's like, well, you didn't mention such and such and such and such. And I'm like, no, normally we have. Mm-hmm. But from their perspective, we haven't. So you don't sit there and combat saying, oh, yes, we talk about it all the time. You say, you're right, ma'am. Can you tell me more about this?
Right.
So again, putting that ownership back on the community. Mm-hmm. That you are controlling this narrative, not me.
Right.
You're telling me and you're instructing me, and I got to listen to you.
Right. And that's what it's about, us controlling our own narrative, not anyone else controlling it. It's dictating it.
Right.
Us controlling our own narrative. And so even with that, Dino, what's kept you going? You talked about some of the things, but what's kept you going?
I think some of it for me, it's the fear of I'm failing this community if I don't go all out with it. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is it's important and it's engaging. It's interesting. It's exciting. I get excited when I hear about family legacies that are happening here. And my question in my mind is like, why doesn't anybody know about this? We got to make this known. We got to make sure that this family's legacy is kept somewhere. You know? So that's a major motivator, that we're putting ourselves on the map.
You also have a love of history.
Yeah, I have a love of history. And I'm a little stubborn, too. You know, when people say I can't do something, I'm like, hold my beer.
What you mean? Okay, I got you.
I'm gonna show you different, that I can do this.
I can make this happen.
Right. You told me I'm not allowed to do this? Watch. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like my, stubborn cancer self. That I'm just going to go ahead and do what I think I need to do to get the information out there. So those are like my major motivators. And and the third one actually is when I get comments from community members. They'll come up and say, "Oh, you're Dino. Thank you for all that you're doing. I learned so much from you."
It's got to be great. That's got to be great.
That is like the confirmation that you're doing the right thing, because you get it's hard to get like a compliment like that from peers, because you'll get the critique first. What you ain't doing, who are you doing this, why are you doing this, I don't trust you. But to get people who are a lot of times low key in the community, but sit there and say, go out of their way to stop you and say, "You're Dino? I heard about you. What you're doing, brother, is great. Keep it up." That's major motivation.
You know what? Something I remember. We just had a premiere of a movie here in Evanston called
Is that a Big Payback?
The Big Payback. Yeah, The Big Payback, and Shorefront is a huge part of the history of the research that was done for it. The Big Payback is basically a movie about Robin Rue Simmons, who is the linchpin or founder, key, whatever I don't know how you call it, of the reparations movement here in Evanston and nationwide, kind of, And I remember being at the premiere, and they were introducing the people that were going to be talking up front after the movie. They said Dino Robinson. People start applauding. I thought it was amazing. I'm like, wow. People woke up when they heard Dino's voice, Dino's name. And I thought that was such a huge tribute to you. So many people, it was a packed theater. It was like standing room only, literally, in the theater. And they were naming people, and everybody was kind of giving the complimentary applause after the end. And they said, and Dino Robinson, people were like, yeah, I'm like, holy crap, D. Because I was sitting up at the top. I was sitting way back at the top in the handicap seat. Don't ask me how I got up there. It was the only seat available at the time. I was up there. And I'm looking down. I'm like, wow, that was an amazing tribute to you. That people know you. People just know that name. And they just said Dino Robinson was a part. They're like, oh, my God, yes, And every time you talk to anybody about that movie, and I say I'm from Shorefront, people are all agush. All, oh my God, thank you guys for doing what you did. Oh my God, Shorefront, oh my God, we couldn't have done it without, Robin was the same way. I did an interview with her a little earlier this week. That'll be coming up soon. But her, Erica Alexander, who's the director, one of the directors, she's like, oh my God, thank you. She was just so appreciative of me. I'm like, all right, I ain't do nothing. She was like, well, thank you for Shorefront. Thank you for doing what you do. I'm like, okay, thank you. You're welcome. I ain't do nothing, but thank you. Okay, no problem. Because a lot of times we do just take the credit for what Dino does. And that's why I'm asking him about his journey, just to help people understand that it's not easy. Okay, great. Like I was saying, he loves the history. Find something you love and go for it. You just have to stick with it. People are going to tell you shouldn't do it. The fact that someone told him he shouldn't be doing this, it's like, what? What do you mean you shouldn't be doing this? You shouldn't be telling our story? Because he's not from Evanston. Shut up. Right. To me, that's how I am. That's my language. I go, shut up. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. But it's like, really, come on. And if you get a chance to see this movie, The Big Payback, you can actually go on the PBS site. If you just type in The Big Payback right now, besides the James Brown videos that's going to come up, you can watch that and have fun with that if you want to. But The Big Payback, if you click on the link, it's going to take you to a PBS page. You can just watch it, for free. It's an amazing movie. It's a great movie. It's a great testament to the person, Robin Simmons. It's a great testament to Shorefront. It's a great testament to Dino. It's a great testament to everybody involved. It really is. So I'm just telling you, go check that out. So right now, I'm not going to keep everybody here. You've been here for a little bit more than a half hour. And I want to tell Dino, so tell me, if they want to find out about Shorefront, what should they do?
So if you want to learn more about Shorefront, just visit our website, shorefrontlegacy.org. That'll take you to the many activities that we do. We have a Facebook presence. We have an Instagram presence as well, filled with activities that we do in the community. But if you want to contribute in any way, we're always looking for archives, connections to blacks on the North Shore of Chicago. And if you want to donate, we have a donate button on there. And feel free to do it, especially during Black History Month.
Yeah,
this is the time to do it. We need to build that endowment for us. And everybody is part of this legacy. And the one parting thing I've always keep people in mind, too, is I'm not doing this for accolades. I've always had the community in mind. So I always put, one of the rules I have for all the board members when they come on board, I always say you need to check your ego at the door. Because it's not about you. It's about the community. And if I'm putting in all this work and all this effort, and I'm keeping myself down, like not trying to be front and center of everything, I expect the board to do the same thing. And if I engage with people and other entities that are all about ego, I will not work with them because it's not true. It's not of value to the nature of our communities to be working with the community, having the community own this. In the end, the community builds you up for you. You don't have to do it for yourself. If you're doing the right thing, the community will build you up.
Exactly. Yes, y'all heard that right. I can't say it no better. Y'all heard it right. If I replay it. You didn't understand it the first time. Replay it. You heard what he said. All right. So, all right. Thank you so much, Dino. I appreciate you, man. I'm sure we're going to be talking more. You know how we are. I mean, I tell people, Dino's my best friend. Dino's my guy at 2 a.m. Hey, man, Dino, I got an idea. It's like, what? Because these days I'm up, I don't know why, man. I'm up at like 3 a.m. doing stuff. 3 a.m. I'm up.
This is my new piece of music.
Yeah, man. I'm up at 3 a.m. making music. I'm at 3 a.m. with ideas for the Chip Ratliff show and things like that. I'll send him some, hey, man, I got this logo idea. He'll get it like at 3:30 in the morning. Hey, man, I can't put this together, man. Can you do this for me? Because he's a graphic designer, too. The graphic artist, he's like, yeah, man, I'll do it for you. All right, thank you.
I still owe you a logo.
He still owes me a logo. But that's how I am, man. And he tolerates me. So it's always good to have that buddy, I guess, that friend with you, man. But anyway, thank you so much, Dino, for joining us today on the Chip Ratliff Show. And everybody, we will be right back with my closing words, all right? Stay there. Hang in there, man.
Shorefront is a historical organization specializing in documenting the historical Black experience in Chicago's suburban North Shore. Located in Evanston, Illinois, and with archival collections consisting over 1,500 images, an obituary collection, books and manuscripts, historic newspapers, and other documentation dated back before 1900, Shorefront's archives have been accessed and cited around the globe. To support Shorefront, or for just more information, feel free to go to shorefrontlegacy.org. That's shorefrontlegacy.org. Thank you once again for listening to the Chip Ratliff Show. Don't forget to enjoy, follow, and share this episode. Until next time, take care of yourself and peace.